when I got back to the United States, that is what I researched. And I found that the year I joined Peace Corps, 74, was the year that a very important academic book was published, Black Majority, by Peter Wood, and historian, I think, for many years at I think it was University of North Carolina, or Duke, one or the other. But he's the one who first made this connection. And I read his work, and also other scholars were then coming into the fields of looking at this connection. It fascinated scholars, it fascinated teachers, because here was an example of where Africans were brought over to a couple of colonies, not just for their physical labor, but for their know-how. And it became very clear that rice is such a sophisticated form of agriculture that the American planters from a cold place in Europe had no idea how to grow it, how to process it. So it meant that the knowledge that the Africans brought was fundamental to this industry. But then when you look a little bit deeper, one of the things you discover is that rice was actually the biggest moneymaker in the North American colonies for a long time. I found a debate that had to do with adopting our Constitution, in which one of the delegates stood up and said, hit the table, and he said, I would not have this in our Constitution for all the rice in Carolina. So rice was perverted as something that you could get rich off of. Now, if you compare it to the Caribbean or Brazil, sugar, no. It wasn't that big a money earner. But for the North American colonies, it was actually a big deal. So I had been asked by so many people, including local villagers on the nearby islands, where did our people go? And I had no idea before I left. I had no idea. I thought Jamaica was probably the best answer. It's still not a bad answer, but because they weren't all taken, needless to say, from Buns Island to South Carolina and Georgia. But the numbers are really important. My best guess at this point is that 25 to 30% of the enslaved people who were taken out of Buns Island wound up in the Low Country. That's phenomenal. I mean, if you look at any of these other slave castles, including the ones people go to all the time, it's close to zero. Because they're going to the West Indies where the real money was made. So all of this caused me to go deeper and deeper into the subject. One of the things I found out is that the scholars who had been looking at the figures, especially for Charleston, as to where Africans were coming from, they weren't familiar enough with 18th century British terminology for Africa to understand what they were seeing. They were saying Sierra Leone is a little tiny number, and then there were some other tiny things, like Windward Coast, and Rice Coast, of course. And what they were not doing was adding all those up, because they're the same thing. And then it starts to be, for South Carolina, it starts to be about